Okay, I think we're ready to go. My name's Louise Walker and I'm Senior Research Manager at CIRIA. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar on SuDS and surface water, the retro trend for green recovery. Before we begin, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping points. The webinar is being recorded. Everyone's in listen-only mode. If you could raise your hand if you need something from one of the hosts. Please could you type your questions in the Q&A box rather than the comments box so that we can track them. Please upvote questions with a thumbs up to like other people's questions so we can see the most popular. And yeah, you can use the chat box to share any resources you would like to. We've got a few live polls, so we'd encourage you to participate in those. And please do share your views using the Twitter handles shown there. There'll be plenty of time for questions at the end of the presentations. And we will, Chris and I will keep an eye on the Q&A box. We aim to finish at 3:30. I'd like to say a quick thank you to all our susdrain partners and supporters, without whom events such as today's would not be possible. And now I'd like to introduce you to our chair for the webinar, Chris Digman, Executive Technical Director at Stantec and Visiting Professor at the University of Sheffield. And I'll put a bit more information about Chris in the chat. Thank you. I'll hand over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Louise. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar today. I think it's quite an important webinar in terms of us looking to actually gain knowledge and actually transfer knowledge around kind of how we look to retrofit SuDS going forward and that. Retrofit projects are gaining an awful lot of traction, and in some locations we've seen them been installed now for well over 15 and 20 years in the UK. So we're starting to gain better knowledge of the uncertainties and challenges that come with long-term management. We've seen a growing increase in the number and type of SuDS also being retrofitted, and there's many different drivers which are encouraging the use of SuDS. They may be used to actually manage to slow the flows entering drainage systems, or being used as a way to remove flows as well. Now, since CIRIA's guidance on retrofitting back in 2012, C713, so that was retrofitting to manage surface water, which I was had the pleasure of being one of the co-authors on. There's been many new kind of initiatives and examples which are now actually available for us to actually be able to actually learn from. And we've seen many great examples come through in susdrain's SuDS Awards. And susdrain remains a really good repository for the SuDS examples that many folks are kind of actually creating. And I'd encourage anyone who's not used susdrain and actually looked at some of the case studies on there to do so, because it's a very good resource to be able to actually learn from. Now, it's fair to say that there's been various different discussions and around a lot of the opportunities and challenges faced when we come to retrofit. Wavin, who's one of CIRIA's susdrain's kind of key partners, actually blogged on this in December 2022. And there's and I think collectively, as an industry, we're certainly starting to be really very clear in terms of what are some of those challenges and actually how do we overcome them. And how we overcome, I think, is a really key aspect, particularly as we kind of actually learn from the experiences that many of us have gained over the years, and also internationally what we've actually learned. If we look now in terms of actually where things are kind of actually moving forward, there's lots of kind of actually drive behind kind of actually green recovery. And Louis is going to cover a little bit around kind of green recovery at the start of this. But we've certainly seen the likes of kind of Ofwat with Defra, the Environment Agency, supporting water companies, for example, to drive forward with more kind of actually green, resilient solutions, and that's going to be part of the sharing of information that we're going to hear today from some of our speakers. And along with retrofit, we're also maybe seeing a bit of a shift in England now in terms of the adoption of Schedule 3 of the Flood and Water Management Act. And so we should start to see far more greater uptake also around new development with regards to SuDS. So whether we're looking to manage flood risk, reduce flows entering the combined sewers to reduce the spill frequency and volume of storm overflows, which is a particularly hot topic, and looking to create an awful lot of multiple benefits, it's clear they probably have a contribution to the green recovery. So what's key though is actually how we achieve good retrofitting, and that's what we're going to look forward to actually hearing about today. So at this webinar, we're going to hear about the importance of retrofitting to actually manage surface water. Some examples that are actually coming out from a key project being undertaken in Mansfield, and the importance around the need for community engagement when we come to retrofit projects. And what's going to be also quite interesting is we're going to hear around surface water management in Ukraine and how the lessons learned both in UK and in Ukraine can maybe be actually shared. So I'm delighted today that we're joined by a number of great speakers. Louise Bill is going to, Louise Walker is going to actually firstly just talk for a little bit around some of the key drivers before we hear from Faye, Bill and Adam Boucher from ACOM and Severn Trent Water respectively, who are going to actually share around the Mansfield work. We're going to then hear from Habib Khan from Meristem Design, who's been undertaking a lot of great retrofit. And then finally, it's a great pleasure to welcome Pavlo Khmelynytskyi from the Ukraine as well. So we'll move straight on, and I'll hand over to Louise, or are we going to do a quick poll? Yeah, we're going to do a quick poll first. So first, we just want to get a kind of a simple feel for the audience. And so we just want to kind of get a feeling from, have you been involved in implementing retrofit SuDS? And so if you could just actually answer this kind of question now, and then we'll see what results actually come up. And this is certainly quite helpful for CIRIA to actually understand that as it looks to continually understand what is required by the industry for us to actually move forward and actually support, for example, how we retrofit SuDS. So that's quite an interesting distribution there, seeing nearly half of yourselves haven't actually been involved in implementing SuDS. It's great to see you think 25% of you will be in the near future. So we might be quite keen to hear from some of those of you who haven't been involved as well, whether you maybe in several years' time, wherever you will have had that chance. So we're going to move on to the next session now. And so I'm going to hand back over to Louise Walker, who's going to take us through, I think, some of the drivers for retrofitting.
Yeah, so I've just got a few slides just to set the scene of today's webinar. So and start by talking about definitions of green recovery. I found a few. They seem to agree that it's about building prosperity in the wake of economic crisis, building back better, thinking about the economy, the environment and society. And in particular, of relevance to us today is Ofwat's driver for a green recovery. And that's about delivering lasting environmental improvements for current and future generations whilst meeting the economic and social challenges. Water management drivers for green recovery in particular, we're thinking about the 25-year environmental plan published by the government in 2018, followed by the Environment Act, which was published following Brexit and set out the UK's ambitions for the environment, the strategic environmental requirements of the water industry and how they are delivered via the National Environment Programme, and in particular thinking about drainage and wastewater, the DWMPs, which water companies are currently very engaged with delivering. The 25-year environment plan has quite a lot of targets, but ones particularly relevant for today are listed there. Thinking about the water environment, the natural environment, also beauty and heritage, as well as mitigating and adapting to climate change. The Environment Act then gives clear statutory targets for air, biodiversity, water and waste, and to reverse the decline in species abundance by the end of 2030. Environmental requirements for the water industry, objectives set by the Environment Agency and Natural England. Companies are expected to achieve a thriving and natural environment, provide an expected level of service, and also provide resilience both for the environment and for water customers. And this is done through the Water Industry National Environment Programme, which includes legally binding targets for water quality, water quantity and biodiversity as set out in the Environment Act. And there is funding to help deliver that. And these targets must also be aligned with other strategy and policy. And the drainage and wastewater management plans are developed by the water industry, and final plans are due in spring of this year. The National Environment Programme is outcome focused, and the outcomes have to consider the natural environment, net zero, catchment resilience, as well as outcomes for the communities. And as I mentioned, drainage and wastewater management plans, which are taking up a lot of thinking within the water industry, were required by government as the government thought about urbanisation, how housing was provided in the face of climate change. And so asking the water industry to look over a longer time horizon of 25 years and ensure capacity against current and future pressures, along with thinking about risks of climate change and population growth. So that's gone from the drivers to the detail of what's happening. We've also Ofwat is the water regulator, and following the COVID pandemic, asked water companies for proposals for a more resilient future, and a year later gave the green light to invest money on building back greener. And these were some of the projects that were successful in being able to invest that money in green recovery projects, and we're going to hear about one of those very shortly. The outcomes that Ofwat visualised were allowing water companies to take action on particularly pressing environmental issues, but while benefiting customers and helping to recover post-COVID, and trialling innovative ways of working. We've also got to remember the big picture, and had a conversation last night with a retired a colleague from Yorkshire Water, who's also been very heavily involved in water strategy for a number of years. and reminded me that we should think about the big picture, that we need a resilient water environment for the future, and water infrastructure requires investment. Only about 1% of the world's fresh water is easily accessible for human use, and we should look after that. But there are risks and opportunities related to water that will affect economic development and prosperity. And we should also remember that we're all aiming towards delivery of sustainable development goals, and we won't succeed unless our engineering, innovation and ingenuity create cities that people will want to live in. So thank you, Brian, for reminding us of that. I'll pass on now to the next speakers, Adam and Faye. Thank you.
So Louise, thank you for that. And it's certainly interesting to see, I think if we look at the size of the Water Industry National Environment Programme going forward, that could be increasing in several magnitudes of order compared to what we've seen in this spending period. So it's great that actually Faye and Adam can now actually kind of share about the green recovery in Mansfield, their work there. So Faye and Adam, nice to see you both, and take it away, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Adam Boucher. I'm the operations lead for Severn Trent on the green recovery project. Hopefully you can see me.
So my name's Faye Bull. I am a regional director for AECOM in our water business based in Chesterfield. I've got a background in local government and with Severn Trent Water directly, and I'm working nationally for AECOM's water team, leading on blue-green infrastructure, specifically helping Adam and his team to deliver the green recovery project in Mansfield.
Thanks, Faye. Yeah, so our ambition is to rewind the clock and retrofit in Mansfield. And effectively, as you can see on this first slide, turn some of these areas that were thriving verges and green spaces that have been paved over for maintenance reasons, the majority of them, into thriving verge rain gardens, etc. So you can see a good example on the bottom there. So we're investing £76 million of customer money as a result of the green recovery, post-pandemic recovery from Ofwat on nature-based solutions to protect communities from flooding, 90,000 people in the Mansfield catchment. We're also going to get obviously that secondary benefit of reducing storm overflow activations by taking so much surface water out of a network that is nearly wholly combined within the market town of Mansfield. So we've got a local authority, Mansfield District Council, who are the planning authority, and also the neighbourhood town centre kind of managers. And then we've got a highway authority and lead local flood authority in Nottinghamshire County Council. So it's a dual council, and we've actually embedded ourselves into Mansfield District Council's building to make sure that we're creating that collaborative team. So our objective is to provide 58 million litres of surface water equivalent storage. So that's a massive volume, never been done on this scale. And what we're hoping is this provides a blueprint for how we can manage flood risk in the future. And obviously it makes Mansfield a bit of a fresher, greener place to live as well. So some of the challenges that we had initially were that Severn Trent didn't have any SuDS standards. So that was kind of our first challenge. And obviously we're trying to create a set of nature-based standards and templates to retain surface water, slowing it down, reducing that flow back to our sewerage network, or where possible, infiltrate that back to the ground. So we've created 5 main templates, what I call the green to better green, bioswales and detention basins. Obviously, detention basins being a bit more Mr. Blobby shape and depressions in the ground versus the long kind of bioswale, which gives us opportunity where we've got green space more next to the highway. We've then got what I call the highway interventions, so verge rain gardens and street planters, which are the same. Just depends on where we can fit them with regards to utilities and other constraints. And then the third thing, the last thing is really the permeable paving. Now, obviously, not necessarily seen as a green solution because it's pretty grey on that photo, as you can see. But what it does provide us with is some of the verges and front garden space that has been taken out by people over the last few decades has been because of that need for parking capacity. So we can still retain that need and deliver that capacity for them by providing permeable paving. So very much our hierarchy is provide a green solution where we can, but where we can't and we need to maintain parking need and capacity, we can do the permeable paving. We're obviously trying to infiltrate into ground as much as we can, but one of the key aspects around our project is actually feeding surface water directly into these SuDS and then controlling that out of the storage layer via flow control facility. So that's been one of our main challenges, along with the material properties, the porosity of the storage layer. We're trying different products and also the growing medium, the hydraulic conductivity of that and how quickly we can or slowly we can get flow through that medium and making sure that that's right. So one of the other challenges has been the permeable paving ratio, and I was looking at that with regards to the intervention area versus the contributing area entering it, and also challenging some of the original assumptions in the SuDS manual around that. So yeah, there's some of the challenges that we've had. Some of the benefits that obviously SuDS offer us is not just about reducing storm overflow magnitude or also reducing the flood risk. We obviously look into this project to develop many different additional benefits, such as obviously cleaning the surface water much better than we are direct to the river at this moment in time. We also get an energy and carbon reduction, we think, where we can infiltrate because we are currently pumping at the sewage treatment works to actually treat. We're going to create some local habitat. But what I really like is the partnership funding opportunities that SuDS delivers, and I'll show you an example in a minute, as well as creating the health and well-being opportunities and green space, the town cooling, and then being so variable with regards to a large basin through to a small highway intervention. So I just want to touch on the partnership side now and just flick on to how we're working with Mansfield District Council from the master plan point of view within the town centre. So I think we've seen examples like this before where Sheffield, for example, where there have been schemes that are kind of about connecting people, creating place, making opportunities, and then also sort of secondary managing water. Mansfield District Council are currently going through their master plan ambition, similar to what Sheffield did. And they've got lots of issues with regards to, they're not like Sheffield, the unitary authority. They are very much a part of dual authority with Nottinghamshire County Council. So there's more challenges with regards to managing their traffic within the town. And what we're trying to do is also bake their master plan in with our project. And we're still seeing already some fantastic partnership working opportunities around that, managing the water as well as connecting people and creating place. Next slide, please. One of those opportunities that has come around is this fantastic green space that we've created in an old car park. You can see from the top right hand corner, this is behind the old town hall, was the old indoor market. They knocked it down, created a hard standing car park. Now they're getting that out as part of their master plan ambition, is to remove the cars to the outside the inner ring road. And so they were originally just going to do a green space tiered cascading kind of green space with some seating in. When we got our award and we said, would you be interested in putting some verge rain gardens into your green space? And we could also in the dark area, you can see, which was the old loading bays for the old indoor market, which became the entrance. We could also get another large verge rain garden in there now, as well as on the front of the town hall at the side of the courthouse there, get a couple of extra verge rain gardens in and feed surface water, not just from the local highway environment, but also we've fed this in from the brand new bus station that sits behind the town hall, where they've constructed a surface water system that came directly out of the bus station complex and drops directly into our combined sewer. So we've managed through our project and their project to create this dual purpose, dual beneficial scheme that is going to actually store thousands upon thousands of litres of surface water now, not just provide that green space that was their original project. And I think this is a real example of how SuDS projects, if they're promoted well, can tie in with town funding, levelling up funding, or green space ambition that local authorities have to create this dual opportunity. Faye, do you want to give us some examples of the residential elements?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So in addition to the pilot studies that took place or are taking place in the town centre is about how we integrate those different opportunities, Adam tasked us at ACOM with looking at a residential suburb of Mansfield, an area called Ravensdale, which is to the southeast of the town centre. It was basically given to us as a blank canvas, and Adam's remit was you go and find as much as you can in terms of SuDS opportunities. So starting with a blank sheet of paper, the team have been through a process of identifying sites and then stepping them through concept design, outline design, and then to the point where we hand them over to the contractor at detailed design stage. And if you look at the two pictures on the left hand side there, those are kind of typical images of this part of town. So we've got lovely wide footways, lovely wide roads when we're thinking about retrofitting verge rain gardens and street rain gardens in. And some quite sort of big houses there with driveway access. But you can also see some challenges. So where I see kind of pavement, and I see opportunity in terms of ripping that out and putting in some green solution. And I, along with other members of the team, find it really hard to drive around places now like this, because you're kind of picking out rain garden locations or potential rain garden locations. But the parking issue in an area like this isn't one to be ignored, and we are, the wider Severn Trent team are working very closely with the community to make sure that any sort of parking issues are dealt with, access issues for potentially for disabled people as well, being able to access their houses. On the top right hand side, you can see some permeable paving that's already been built, which is fantastic. So in the middle there, we've got some an area of parking which has been formalised using some permeable paving, and sort of some cul-de-sac parking there on the top right hand side. So that's gone in, and the contractors recently completed that work, and it's showing some good results in terms of the infiltration, visibly anyway, when after rain. And at the bottom there, the middle picture, you can see a typical kind of precinct of shops. And on the right-hand side is our kind of bespoke rain garden there with some landscape design. So that's a visualization, not an actual. We hope that it looks just as beautiful as that when we see the finished product. In this pilot scheme, we got to outline design of 133 interventions, and that gave us around 1,800 meters cubed of storage, so 1,780 meters cubed. So that worked out, for the quick mathematicians amongst you, about 13.4 meters cubed per intervention. And then once we'd finished the pilot phase of the design, Adam then tasked us to go back round again and find additional sites, because we knew that there was more to get out of this area in terms of volume. So then we went and found a further, as part of phase one, we found a further 505 intervention sites which were designed, which provided an additional 2,973 meters cubed. So that works out as 5.9 meters cubed per intervention. So in the pilot phase, we got the low-hanging fruit, the bigger sort of juicier interventions, and then we went back around and we found a lot more interventions, but at much sort of smaller in terms of the return. And this is the end-to-end process that we are following. So the blue boxes there show you kind of quite a normal design process. So bear in mind here that when we pick up each of the catchments that we're working on, we pick them up as a blank sheet of paper, and we have to go through a desktop site selection process. And working with ARUP, Severn Trent and ACOM, all working together in collaboration, we've developed some really useful bespoke tools to help us to identify potential sites quickly, and then prioritise them so that we're focusing our efforts and our design effort on the interventions that will give us the maximum yield. We then look at desktop constraints, so utilities, land ownership and highway considerations, as it says there on the slide, and we trying to move quite quickly into outline design. Now, to standardise and streamline that outline design, we've developed some template designs. As Adam said at the beginning, there were no standards to work from, so we've developed template designs for this project, and we've worked very closely with the Highway Authority, which is Nottinghamshire County Council, to make sure that we've got their buy-in to those outline designs. And at the end of our outline design phase, we go through a review process with the Highway Authority to take account of any concerns or considerations from them. And then we move into detailed design. So the contractor picks this up at detailed design stage. And again, there's further discussions there and further sign off with the Highway Authority before it moves into the construction phase and the handover and closeout. You can see on the top right hand side there, that's a typical kind of plan in terms of desktop site selection. So we're coming up with locations where we could put SuDS, and we're taking consideration of all the different constraints and prioritising where we invest our time and effort. And then on the bottom left hand side there, those are kind of typical outline designs that will go through the process, through the weekly review process that we have with Nottinghamshire County Council. And the point that I wanted to make here was the speed at which we are working. I once worked about 10, 12 years ago when I worked at Nottingham City Council. When I came into the authority, we had a scheme that was just going in the ground, which was 21 rain gardens. And that probably took over a year from sort of concept to construction, if not a bit longer. And we are moving a lot quicker than that. We're picking up catchments now at that desktop site selection stage. We're just starting work now on SuDS solutions that need to be in the ground, absolutely drop dead deadline of March 2025. So for thinking about the whole of the town, the whole of Mansfield, how the traffic management will work when we're having to close roads or put in traffic management, that is a massive endeavour, and it's a very ambitious project to be working on. There's a lot of pressure, very fast moving, very kind of handle turning in terms of trying to get a production line of designs that go through to the contractor to then start to build. And then we've also got, in addition to the highways SuDS, we've also got a programme of detention basins. Now this particular detention basin is moved on a bit since this slide, but this is Racecourse Park. It drains an area of 13,000 metres squared. And for the 10-year storm, this is designed to contain 600 metres cubed, and it contains the 30-year event within its freeboard. So we are looking at sort of these bigger, larger detention basins as well, generally in Mansfield District Council owned land. So we're working very closely in partnership with Mansfield District Council to understand what their design considerations need to be, and what we are kind of working with in terms of their land going forward. This catchment in particular is an already separated surface water network, and we're proposing to take that off. It drops into the combined sewer, so we're proposing to take that out of the combined sewer, drop it into this detention basin, therefore reducing the amount of surface water going into the combined network.
Thanks, Faye.
I'll hand back to Adam now to talk through some of the powers that are being used and the ownership and maintenance going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Faye. So yeah, we've got a really unique opportunity in Mansfield to trial potentially how we could in the future work as a water company intercepting other people's water. Fortunately, there's this section within the Water Industry Act, section 114A, which allows us to install drainage systems to alleviate the entry of others' water into the public sewerage network. So effectively, that's the power that we are laying them under. and we will be adopting and maintaining everything that is green, so verge rain gardens through to bioretention tree pits on this graphic that you can see on the left hand side. The only two elements we won't be taking on, and Ofwat have made this quite clear, is that the permeable paving will be handed over to the Highway Authority, and that's the expectation. And thankfully, NCC have done a lot of work with us to take that on board. And the other one is rainwater downpipe planters, where we will be working on non-household areas to intercept roof water with above ground installations, or even blue-green roof where opportunities arrive. So that's the other opportunity that we won't be taking on as the authority, but we will be looking after everything else for life. So that brings me on to third-party contributions. And the other element of this is that we are providing 89% of the costs, that's £76 million. The expectation is from the regulator that the other 11%, effectively the top up from grey to green solution, will be provided by third parties that benefit from the scheme. So we've got lots of opportunity to try and work with our local authorities, obviously try and get some direct contribution, although at this time, with the current cost pressures everybody's facing, that's really proving difficult. But we do have some fantastic opportunities with match funding, co-delivery partnership. We've just seen a great example of that. And in kind of land value or advice or fees to be transferred. And then obviously the permeable paving is one element as well with regards to community sums and the authority taking that on. So there's lots of opportunities for people to contribute, but also we think we've come upon something with regards to our non-household customers, our largest sites, where we can actually offer them a surface water incentive discount for their surface water charge, based on them allowing us to come onto their site and reduce their contribution to the sewerage network by a minimum of 30%. So we're currently exploring that possibility of installing permeable paving, green interventions where possible, and actually offering a discount for a period of time, which would become their contribution. And after that period of time, they then receive that benefit for themselves. So it's a bit like a solar panel scheme without them having to fund anything. It's effectively a cost neutral incentive with a long-term payback for a small initial contribution that's already contained within their bill. So that's something that we've got our executives buy into and we'll be trialling in the coming financial year. And the last opportunity really is around developers with regards to brownfield development, where we've got areas, and this is a great example where we're seeing demolished terrace properties with existing connections, brownfield sites. So it's an application of that we would normally receive from a developer with a 30% reduced runoff kind of condition placed upon it. And what we're doing with the local authority MDC again is challenging them with regards to the construction of 77 new properties to basically do as a Schedule 3 kind of trial and hang on to all that water that is landing on that site currently within proper SuDS, not just direct gullies to flood risk assessment storage, but effectively verge rain gardens and some of the interventions, with us trying to provide that top-up funding between their normal flood risk assessment storage and our SuDS standards that we would accept. So this is going to be a bit of a flagship project and something that we're looking to replicate throughout any brownfield development in Mansfield over the next couple of years. Finally, really just touching on the point that Chris made at the beginning around how important it is to engage with the local community, not only just from a consult and inform and what's happening, when it's happening and how it's happening, but also the big thing around this one is the why we are doing it. And I think that's where we can really build up support. We're also looking to work with schools and community groups. We've already done assemblies at all 34 schools within the town. So we've got this real opportunity to engage and get support. There's obviously a lot of bad press at the moment around, and a lot of interest around storm overflow activations and also flood risk. So I think this can only be a positive scheme, but it's how we go around and do the sell with regards to the interventions that are going in and build community support to not only understand the why, but also get bought into looking after some of these interventions in the long term. I hope that's given you a bit of an introduction to Mansfield, and we're willing to take any questions.
Adam and Faye, thank you very much for that. Really interesting to hear that and the progress of the journey that you've actually been on. We've got time for just one question. We're going to come back for a lot more kind of actually later on in that. And possibly maybe while you may get the chance to actually type some answers to some of the questions that actually come in as well. But if we just go to the one which was the most hottest topic in terms of votes, from Amanda, was asking how are Mansfield managing skills and funding for management/maintenance to ensure SuDS, especially planting schemes, thrive in the long term?
That's an easy one, because Ofwat, the regulator, have made it very clear within the final determination that we've got a unique opportunity of looking after them ourselves. So that's the big difference. You know, we can fund this through our forthcoming price review in 2024. And we're in a situation that the establishment period that obviously the SuDS manual puts us in, we've kept that establishment period with the contractor for the period of this AMP, because we're only just building our first interventions now. So we've got a 3-year establishment period. We expect to lose about 10% of the planting, obviously keep on top of the watering, and then effectively we will create our own Mansfield maintenance plan going forward. So it's going to be a funded plan, but we're hoping we can get some community involvement in that, or local authority involvement in that.
Excellent, Adam. Thank you. No, well, that's certainly going to be one for us to kind of actually keep an eye on, isn't it, as we go forward with far more of these coming on, and the level of because it isn't just about the water function; it's about actually the wider function that it's actually looking to actually provide. We'll please keep any kind of questions coming in, because we might be able to return back to them later. But Adam and Faye, thank you very much for running through that. Now, before we move on to our next speaker, I think we just got to get a quick short poll to run through. So, and there are two questions. It's the same question, but it's what's your first and second biggest problem in retrofitting SuDS in the urban environment? So if you can just kind of on the first question say what you think is the biggest challenge that we kind of face, and then just scroll down and answer the second question as the second biggest challenge that we face. And then we'll just take a quick look at those results. So Susan, I don't know how we're doing with the numbers on the poll there.
Here are the results.
So, thank you, Susan. So so if we just so we can see the kind of the lack of funding was raised as the biggest challenge, followed by the whole kind of interface with other utilities, which I think is a really interesting challenge, and the lack of collaboration between disciplines. And then looking at the second biggest one, we get that kind of almost additional effect with people still flagging the lack of funding. Skills starts to emerge here a bit more, but also administrative barriers as well, which was a far smaller one up in poll 2. Again, that's quite helpful for us from a CIRIA perspective to kind of actually see where we might want to try and do some further focus and support kind of going forward. So thank you for voting in that, and we're going to move to our second speaker now. And so I'm delighted that we can welcome Habib Khan, Director from Meristrom Design, and he's going to talk about engaging with retrofit. So Habib, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, my name is Habib Khan. I'm the founder and director of Meristrom Design. So yeah, I founded and started Meristrom Design about 8 years ago with a business partner. What we are, background is we are horticulturists. Our background is landscaping, but we moved into the public realms area. So what we do is we design, we fabricate, we install, and we maintain all of our infrastructure projects. So we do everything from beginning to end. We have our own fabrication department, so we do all of our SuDS planters. We fabricate them in-house, and we do all the guarding and the maintenance, all of it within our own areas. Our passion is the environment. So this is our mission. Our mission is to turn the urban grey green, and everything we do has to have planting involved in it. So if somebody just wants some fabricate some benches and that's it without any planting, we wouldn't get involved. So we are focused on the planting element. So we do an awful lot of work with local authorities. We work with almost all London local authorities apart from one. But we work with 200 local authorities throughout the UK. We are the preferred contractor with RHS. We do all their flower shows, and we've been winning lots of awards. And most recently, we won the CIRIA Award for our community rain gardens. So our services are broken into, obviously I'm going to talk today about SuDS and rain gardens, but we do a lot of street furniture, these very large planters that go around. I mean, trying to put trees, everybody agrees we need more trees in our public landscape, but it's very hard to put tree pits in just because the amount of services that are around. Therefore, a lot of our work is overground. We do a lot of parklets as well, a lot of living walls, green screens, and actually something else should be on here is green roofs as well. But what I'm here to talk to you about today is our focusing on our rain gardens and our work with SuDS. So we'll start with rain gardens, and then I'll look at the SuDS planters as well. So you know, this is really becoming more and more popular with a lot of our London Authority clients. If any of you are not familiar, rain gardens are essentially a form of SuDS channel that surface water into a specially designed water absorbent garden. Basically planted with hardy perennials, designed to absorb excess rainwater, slow it down, and receiving the systems such as accessing systems such as existing storm drains. We work, most of our projects are with Thames Water, so they're connecting to Thames Water sewer connections. But they do more than just capturing rainwater. We do incorporate plants that are specifically designed to attract to attract pollinating insects. So, they do attract a biohabitat, and we provide a corridor of biodiversity around urban town centres. We do incorporate a lot of trees as well. It's a fantastic opportunity to incorporate trees whenever you're doing a rain garden. This is a drop curve rain garden. This is in Hackney. We've done about 12 rain gardens in Hackney. And we really kind of position them in an area, so it's both appreciated by the public as like a pocket park rather than just purely functional purposes. One of the big things that we've been involved in recently is community rain gardens. So I think this might be a first, because these are rain gardens which right from the outset are carried out in conjunction with or in collaboration with community groups. So there are hundreds of community groups across London. A lot of them are registered. They do work with local authorities, and this was right from the outset. We did the planting plan. We sent them the planting plan. They had a look at it. They also, if they wanted to make suggestions about their favourite plants, they could do. We looked at their plant selection. If it was suitable for a rain garden, we'd include it in there. This was the day we actually did the installation of the rain gardens. A lot of the residents on the streets came out. You can see the cones in the background. We closed the road as well. So they kind of played around with the planting plan, which is fine. They have that say in it. They have their ownership on it. Some of the plants, they actually went out and selected, and it was very, very popular. So they had ownership right from the beginning. This is called the Coppermill Community Group. There's about 22 rain gardens, is one area of Waltham Forest, and it was done with London Borough Waltham Forest Council. But engaging with the community, that's on the day itself, it is important. So if you can get children out there, get them out. Then we did close the road for the day, and the feedback from that was really great. And we rolled this out to more and more communities throughout London. So this was the first one. Even before they went in, there was engagement with the local residents. So, we had the Tom Fenway, which was in charge of the Coppermill community group, going around with a plan of what we're going to do, where we're going to do it, the planting area, what the benefits of it, what are the features of this, because often, you are taking away car parking space, and it can be very precious. So you do need to sell the benefits of the rain gardens to the communities before it goes in there. It is proved to help prevent antisocial behaviour because there's ownership, people involved in it. It's not imposed on them. So it is, you know, it is useful for us to do that. Planting scheme, it is very important to get the right planting scheme in. This is where our background in horticulture really comes into its own. So all the plants that we look at, the grasses, the flowering herbs, ferns, the trees, you know, you want a good selection. So in the winter, it doesn't look like it's dead. You know, you've got nice evergreens going around it, but you've got some lovely colour, you've got some pollinating plants in there. It has to be hardy. You know, our summers are getting hotter and hotter, and drier and drier, and our dry spells are coming early and early each year. So the plants that you put in there, it's very important to have the right planting scheme that they can survive our long hot summers, and of course cope with you know, periodic flooding during downpours. So we do a planting scheme. This is just one page. We've got a whole, you know, if anybody's interested, then drop me an email. We're more than happy to share our planting plan and planting scheme with yourselves. Even if you use it with other contractors, we're happy to spread the word. And it details what plants we use, what are the features of the plants and the benefits of them, and you know, the heights that you need to incorporate. So yeah, the planting scan is planting species really good. You know, we will do a planting plan as well for our rain garden. So again, if there's trees going in there, if there's herbs going in there, whereabouts are they going to be positioned in that particular area? So you need to be careful. Some people like to have height toward the back of the rain garden. You know, you need to be wary about, you know, when you've got cars in that area. We do incorporate. You know, you've got areas here, for example, you've got stepping stones through the rain gardens, and you know, we've got rain gardens going in there specifically designed with seating to go inside of it. So it is like a mini pocket park on the end of your road that the residents can enjoy. But yeah, a good planting plan to begin with is showing you where the different, you know, plants are going to be incorporated into that area. We do use protective timber bollards, especially if you're going to put them onto the road, because you will get vehicles. You know, you can picture a delivery vehicle and the care they take when they're reversing can go into the rain garden. So, you know, having like the timber planters works really well. This is Waltham Forest again. This is the Essex Road rain gardens, and it also provides an identity, and it tells people it's a rain garden. We do have other rain gardens where it's got more information about the plant species that's used on that rain garden, so the residents can look and can identify the plant that can put it in there. So it's useful to have the timber bollards. You can retrofit tree pits into rain gardens. So this tree's been there for quite a few years, and you know what they've done is they adapted the curbstones around it and turned it into a mini rain garden. This is typical of our smaller interventions here. This is in Merton Road. It's a footpath. There's a school on the right of this picture, and then you've got residential houses on the left-hand side. This isn't even after a heavy downpour. When it does have a heavy downpour, you cannot you cannot go down this path. Residents literally have to go around or go through the grass in Wellington. As I said, there is a school on the right, so it does cause a lot of problems when this does flood. So this is what it's like before we came in there. So we work with Merton Council and Thames Water. They provide the rainwater sewer pipe connection drawings, told us, you know, where they were, how deep they were. We then did the technical drawings. So our own engineer drew the SuDS drawings. It's very important, you know, to have the right level of freeboard, the right level of right amount of compost and soil, and then how it's connected into the perforated pipes connected into the existing pipe sewers themselves. For the drawings we did, we supplied them. Merton Council, own contractors, they did the excavation works themselves and connected it into the pipe work, but we came along, did the shingle, the membrane, the soil, and the landscaping. So this is what it looks like afterwards. Huge difference. To date, so far, they've not had any drain water. There is a Thames Water sewer pipe running directly through this particular rain garden. It's connected with the pipe work into the sewer connection. This is at Wimbledon Hill. We've done about 8 in with Merton Council. We're just doing another 2 at the moment now. So these use very large curved rainwater inlets from both the road and from the footpath itself. Again, in the you know, during the rainy season, the bottom of Wimbledon Hill would have a lot of flooding, and you've got the large amount of vehicles passing through this particular area. Make sure you have sufficient depth. You know, we've seen a lot of rain gardens, and it's just, you know, the actual soil is level with the curb, and it just, you know, you just can't believe why they would do that. You do need a minimum 200 to 300 millimeters depth for the freeboard, and then allows the rainwater capture to be sufficient. And having the right amount of right ratio of the soil is also important as well for the substrate. So, you know, here, this is according to the LDA design, which is fantastic. Which is what we use: 50% sand, 30% topsoil, and 20% compost. That is the same mixture that we use ourselves as well. Maintenance, it's very important to have the maintenance. I think this is often overlooked. You know, you have engineers, you put it in there. That's the easy side, but who's going to maintain it? You know, rain garden are not self-sufficient. You know, in the first year in London, we go out 30 times a year. Perhaps if you're further up north or out west, perhaps it rains more often. You don't need to go out 30 times a year. But in the first year, we do go out 30 times a year. Second year, it drops down to about 15 times a year. And then you can get away with maybe half a dozen times a year. But to do the watering, the weeding, the plants, you know, we also do collect litter. So it is important to have a maintenance in place, and said we often do provide 3-year maintenance package. After 3 years, they are fairly self-sufficient, established route system. So we're doing a lot of work with cycle routes, putting rain gardens along cycle routes. Is the one Forest Road, 600 meters long each way. We had a meeting with Transport for London last month about doing more of the cycle superhighways, rain garden along cycle superhighways. You know, if you can collaborate with local artists, you make a real feature of your rain garden, please do so. We do a lot of rain gardens with schools as well. So what happened outside school, there's a lot of funding at the moment now with the school streets as well to kind of do things to decarbonize the schools. So outside of the schools, we put in rain gardens, and the school children come out. We do workshops inside the schools. Sort of the importance of nature, connecting plants with humans and air quality, and they can get an input on the kind of trees. For example, a lot of the trees here, they've asked for fruit trees, apple trees, pear trees, cherry trees are edible, so that's great. So they will enjoy the fruits of labour. We do a lot of retrofitted plants with schools as well. So we picked up a contract last year with Thames Water, and we're working with Greater London Authority. We're working with 85 schools and their SuDS programs. We've installed over 900 SuDS planters across London's most flood-prone schools. 1 in 5 schools in London suffers from flooding, which is a big problem for the school itself. SuDS planters, it's fairly straightforward. You know, we do the adaptations of the downpipe into the rain planters itself with the permeable pipe. You can have flow meters if you want to see how much rainwater is captured going in, how much rainwater is captured going out. Planter detail, again, I can send it to you, but it's fairly straightforward. You know, we've got the shingles, we've got the permeable pipes, you've got emergency overflow, and we custom make this at any size. The smallest ones we do are 600 mil by 600 mil, but we're doing one at the moment right now at 9 meters long by 1 meters wide for a very large building. So you can have any size you want. We're also doing them in steel as well for Southwark Council and for a residential project. We work quite a lot on estates as well, but this is one that we've done in schools. You can see the diverters. We convert the downpipe into the planters, and then the planters either into open drain like it is here, but you can also have them into, you can see an outlet here. So the pipes go into it, and then you've got a outlet pipe here connecting into the existing drain but effectively it slows down the rainwater and it captures it. I said, these are the ones for the schools. We're doing a lot of them for residential estates as well. And I said, it can be any material you want, but most of them tend to be either timber, steel, or GRP. We're also looking at residential projects with the utility companies in areas. So we're combining both the rain gardens to capture surface water from the road, but also putting SuDS planter into residential houses on the same street. So it really is hitting the problem from both, you know, from the roof and from the surface pipe to make a real difference to the floodwater risk. So thank you very much. That is my presentation. Thank you for listening. Please contact me if you need any further information.
Habib, thank you. Great timing. We've just got. We'll just take a question to Habib as well, if that's okay. And just looking at top one that's come in the Q&A from Jack, which is asking, our ground maintenance team extremely wary of an increased workload. We are proposing where we're proposing replacing verges with rain gardens. And are there any planting options that would maybe make it equal or less than the maintenance in comparison to a green grassed verge?
Yeah, nearly all of the rain gardens that we have provided, we have been adopted. We look after the maintenance. The existing local authorities grounds team have not taken over that rain garden. It has been bundled into a maintenance contract with ourselves because it's easier for them. So that maintenance is an issue. On that questionnaire you had before about what do you think the barriers are to a rain garden, my number one response to that was maintenance. Because funding doesn't seem to be the problem. We are inundated. We've got hundreds of rain gardens, you know, we are inundated with rain gardens. Funding is not the problem. And the biggest issue that people have with putting them in is who looks after them once they're in. But yeah, there are plants that are lower maintenance. You know, you can get lovely grasses, you know, wild grasses and verges to go in there into the verges, which is not much more maintenance than the grasses. But it depends what level of shrubs, you know, how much, you know, they're the sliding scale between aesthetics and kind of shrubs you want and the lower maintenance, more boring looking plants. But certainly if you drop me a list, I can send them a list of the low maintenance plants on our planting scheme.
Happy, thank you. Yeah, and it's always this challenge with having that kind of initial capital funding, but then the operational revenue funding to kind of go on, and particularly if you're trying to actually manage some kind of siltation, what you got to pick up at different times and that, and the frequency and when's the right time to go and do stuff, isn't it? So. Yes, it is. I mean, as I said, a lot of them bundle in 3 years up front. So what they'll go is, right, you know, here's a quote for designing, installing the rain garden, and here's 3 years maintenance bundled in, and that's come out of that capital funding. And after 3 years, the plants and any trees are very well established, so the maintenance really just drops to almost. Yeah. And we'll just pick up one last one before we move to another poll, Habib. So what provision was included in the rain gardens for exceedance extreme storms? Sorry, can you repeat that? Yeah, so Matthew asked, what provision was included in the rain gardens for kind of extreme weather events, really, and probably extreme rainfall events?
We work with engineers and extreme. We work with engineers, and they provided us with their storm rainwater provisions that we needed to capture. I can't remember what it was, whether it was 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 year incidences, but it depended upon the different rain gardens that we had. But we worked with actual engineers, water engineers, and we kind of designed our rain garden to their different local authorities had different kind of expectations as to what their worst case scenario was for the extreme storm conditions.
Yeah, Habib, thank you. Brilliant. Well, Habib, thank you very much for that presentation and sharing your knowledge and the great work that you're doing. Now we're going to move on to hear from Pavlo in a moment, but we've just got another poll coming up, and so again, there's 2 questions on here, so if you can look to actually do this. So if you've been involved in retrofitting SuDS, what has been a significant enabler? And so if you could choose your top 2 choices there, please. And then if you can just remind you to scroll down and look at the second question, if you can, please. So what would help overcome barriers to SuDS retrofit from your perspective? And there you can tick all that apply, but maybe you don't tick them all. And I think while we're just waiting for those results to come up before I hand over to Pavlo, there's a couple of things that you mentioned, Habib. I think that would like to certainly, if we're able to kind of actually share via susdrain some of that planting scheme information that you kind of talked around, I think that's really great to share that knowledge. And it's particularly good to see you actually in terms of actually what you're doing to retrofit around trees, which can often be quite a challenge for some folks and that. And so what we'll do, we'll just let people, we've got the results from the poll. It's great trying to do this stuff live. So let's just scroll that up. So so we can see the results. 44% saying that the significant enabler was the formal or informal partnership, really actually helping make things actually happen, followed by maybe actually having that driving force of a champion behind that. It's quite interesting actually, maybe the whole direction of industry in the UK, seeing more and more kind of formal informal partnerships coming together. And so then just looking at that second question in poll 3, seeing actually what would be most helpful. And I think that's it's kind of good to see that there's some further requests kind of actually coming through around the guidance on 2 of those different aspects, along with some awareness raising, and of course some ring fence funding for SuDS retrofit. Wouldn't that be lovely? Brilliant. Well, thank you for responding to them. I'm now going to hand over to Pavlo. Pavlo, a very warm welcome from the UK. And I'll let you introduce yourself and talk about your work and where you're trying to actually take things over there.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Pavlo Khmelynytskyi. I'm board member of small NGO Rivers of Khmelnytskyi. And today I'm in a design bureau. Mr. Dmytro Reifschneider is chief designer and his wife is their own bureau. And there are also ladies on the background. They are also young architects. And first of all, I would like to thank you for Dr. Louise Walker. It's very important that we started to communicate with CIRIA, and it was also very important to hear that you have a special regulator for water supply companies, Ofwat, Mr. Chris Digman, made a very good remark that you have in your regulators plans the point on environmental protection and biodiversity with help of sustainable drainage systems. So today I will deliver a short presentation about our city of Khmelnytskyi, why we want to apply sustainable drainage systems, maybe also some experience with sustainable drainage we previously had, maybe 50 or 70 years ago. I will make a comment about this. So now I would like to show my presentation, but first of all, let's start. Where is Khmelnytskyi now? It's quite far from front line. You see Khmelnytskyi is marked with a green dot. It's, I would say, deep province of Ukraine. It's on the border between the western part of Ukraine and central part of Ukraine. So Westerners are calling our people of Khmelnytskyi like people from the center, and people from the center they think that we belong to Western Ukraine. So we are a border city. So before the war, population of our city was close to 274,000 people, but after the war broke out, so we housed many refugees, and now our population is more than 300,000. So it's substantial increase, and substantial increase was the load on the wastewater treatment facilities. Khmelnytskyi is semi-industrial city. Maybe most prominent sector is clothing industry, and actually our factories, they are even supplying school uniform for Great Britain. So maybe some of your school uniform is made in Khmelnytskyi city, but it's not always written on the cloth. So Khmelnytskyi is situated on 2 main rivers, Pivdenny Bug River and Ploska River. And it's very important because Khmelnytskyi started at the time it was called Proskuriv. You see the similarity with the name Ploska River, Ploski River, Proskuriv. It was a development in the name, and in the middle of the 20th century, our city was renamed. So as a board member of NGO, I decided to engage stakeholders, and I have found the most developing design bureau, Reifschneider Design Bureau. They are the main stakeholder because currently they have running projects, and they are willing to apply sustainable drainage systems into their projects, and they already have some experience with rain gardens, and that rain gardens actually work. Mr. Dmytrov can confirm. So in which projects we want more SuDS? Here you can understand Design Bureau Reif-Schneider. First project is residential complex Smart and Green, and another 3 projects are parks. Second park, youth park, is a new project, and third park also will be Park of Khmelnytskyi Heroes. It will be also a new project, and fourth park, Chekman Park, it already exists from the 1950s. It's a very interesting place, but it needs to be a bit renovated, because the drainage system that was created in that area of Chekman Park is not being cared properly. That's why we have problems with that. For me personally, it's very, very important place. And my search for sustainable drainage actually started when I saw how polluted is water in open drainage channels in the park. But about that a little bit later. So please take a look on our Khmelnytskyi city. You see Pivdenny Bug River and 2 big reservoirs on the northwestern part of the city. This is a city reservoir on Pivdenny Bug River. The water quality is not good. It's polluted with phosphate compounds, with nitrogen compounds, and it's a challenge for us to return it to clean state. It will be very, very long way. It's not a high topic in our political discussions, unfortunately, I would say, for Ukraine now, but I hope that this will be a topic for discussion after the war ends and we will have peace. So number 1 represents Smart and Green development site, number 2 Youth Park, number 3 Heroes Park, and number 4 Chekman Park. And if we look at Khmelnytskyi, we can cut 3 watersheds: northern watershed, central watershed, and southern watershed. Another small river, Kudrenka, is beneath the picture. You see 3 rather big reservoirs on River Kudrenka. I have not mentioned it, but we actually have 3 rivers in Khmelnytskyi, not 2. Smart and Green is only on paper now. So Reif-Schneider Design Bureau is willing to completely, from the blank, implement sustainable drainage. And the place is hilly, it's situated on the slope, and there is already apparent understanding that erosion problems will appear. That's why we should use open drainage system, and maybe with help of swales, we can create it in a natural way. So let's proceed to another photo. Here you see the photo, aerial view of the northern part of the city, and that white outline shows where the future smart and green housing complex will be, and the water flows from that place to that lake. You see already the lake, and I'm afraid that water quality in the lake will decrease when a residential complex appears, because very often our Ukrainian constructors, they completely rely on underground drainage, on asbesto pipes. Yes, we still use them a lot in Ukraine. It's not prohibited to that extent as in the West. So it's a good place to join our efforts and to apply sustainable drainage systems for that wide outlined area. And the team of Design Bureau Reif-Schneider is willing to cooperate and to have maybe a sort of peer support. So let's proceed. Here you see how it will look like as our first idea. Sustainable drainage is not completely applied here. So you see different types of housing. Closer to the waterway, dimensions of housing is smaller, and on the hill, dimension of the housing is higher. So we have big lake downstream, you see on the center, yes, we have hilly terrain, and we have a good ground for sustainable drainage systems. So a bit closer look for the future view of smart and green residential complex. And let's proceed to another two parks. From the left side, you see the aerial view on Youth Park. You see the drainage channel is marked, yes, from the right side of the left picture. And we would like to create from that drainage channel a sort of bioswale. Yes, it will work properly, and it already exists. So it's a sort of retrofitting. I think you would agree with that. And from the right side, we have a much bigger plot, but the scale of the photo is such that you maybe think that the right plot is smaller. No, it's much, much bigger. So the solid blue line is our Khmelynytskyi River, and small and a small channel, yes, a small drainage channel is connected to the Khmelynytskyi River. But there are many, at least two or three underground drainage pipes that pollute that small channel, and we have problems in that area. So we need a sort of solution for that area. And maybe 50 years ago, this area was completely cut with parallel channels, parallel to the river, and all polluted water, that was flowing from residential places, surface stormwater, yes. It was accumulated in the open drainage channels that were parallel to the river, and in natural way, river water has been cleaning up. But that drainage channels, they were neglected, maybe already for 20 years or even for 30 years. And that's why that natural system does not work anymore, and we need to review it. So final picture that I can share with you why my experience with sustainable drainage started and why I decided to look for sustainable drainage, because each day I walk at the Checkman Park, you see from the left side a big arrow, yes, of dirty red color that shows the place, and I have put a photo, and you see within the red circle 2 underground pipes. And that underground pipes, they are moving back to the photo, to the housing complex. And previously, when I was at school, I remember there was an open drainage channel. And when there was an open drainage channel, instead of that underground pipe, the water quality apparently was much better, because that open drainage channel worked a little bit like a sedimentation channel, yes. And on the end of pipe, yes, there was no pipe, but at the end of that open drainage channel, quality of the water was much better. But maybe 5 or 6 years ago, housing complex appeared. You see, maybe on the picture, but trees are before it. So 2 underground pipes for drainage were put in place, and that much increased the velocity of the flow. And all dirty water from the streets, when park ends, we have watershed, small watershed area for that drainage system, and all the dirty, all the solids, all the pollution flows very quickly to this park channel. And also, park has a system of lakes. Lakes are interconnected between with each other, and we would like to review this as a complete system. Yes, our NGO is promoting the proper care for these lakes and channels, and and we want to find a solution how to decrease the pollution from these underground pipes. And for sure, sustainable drainage systems are a good instrument, and also rain gardens that should be put, from my point of view, further from this place, not on the end of pipe because it's not possible, but on the watershed area for this drainage system. Also, I would like to mention that today we have viewers from Ukraine, small city that is more to the west than Ukraine, in real Western Ukraine, Chertkiv city, and the representative from Chertkiv municipality also inquired me, because we have been actively promoting materials about sustainable drainage. That's why Chertkiv city also is willing to find a good sustainable drainage solution for their street. It's very hilly, so there is a big slope, and it's a very interesting street. I have not included the photos of Chertkiv city to my presentation, but I'm making a remark about Chertkiv problem. So you see that some cities in Ukraine already want to implement sustainable drainage systems. Maybe main obstacle for us is an persistent opinion that open drainage is worse than underground pipes. It's always a discussion, because city authorities, they prefer underground pipe. I don't know why, but they always choose more expensive and less nature-friendly solution. So we have somehow to persuade them to use nature-based technologies. So I think, please excuse me, what we are looking for, yes, maybe small consultation for implementation, peer support, maybe your ideas, your criticism. We can share our experience with sustainable drainage system and what we can give, our devotion to implementation of such. Also support of Reich Schneider Design Bureau. Olena,
Hello.
so Mrs. Olena and Mr. Dmitro, they are here and are learning from your manuals that are of excellent quality, and I have not seen yet so detailed manual like your manual on construction of SuDS, where everything put in a proper place, and you have shown how to do it properly and how not to do it, what to avoid. Yes, and our small NGO also is willing to promote sustainable drainage and is willing to share our experience with other cities and to help them, maybe also to help cities that are damaged by the war, because Khmelnytskyi fortunately is not that much damaged as other cities. So we are open to cooperation, and we will have a lot of work in reconstruction of our Ukrainian cities, and I'm sure we will be doing it together. So thank you very much for this wonderful opportunity and for all your work that you have put on your website, and for all that wonderful manuals. It's very, very high quality material. Thank you.
Pablo, thank you very much for that, and sharing some of your kind of actually challenges around actually what you're looking to do within the city there. There's no kind of specific questions coming yet, but just before we move to the more kind of actually roundtable discussion, I just wondered if I could just, you mentioned a challenge which we probably very much kind of recognise here in the United Kingdom, something which has gone on for several years and still is in some places, this kind of challenge between below ground grey infrastructure pipes solutions versus kind of more open blue-green infrastructure sustainable drainage solutions. And I wondered if you could just kind of articulate just a little bit more, just share a little bit more around where you perceive to be the blockers within the city or kind of wider. Is it a kind of a people thing? Is it a legislation thing? Is it a funding aspect to it? Just so we can get a little bit more kind of actually insight to some of those challenges that you're facing, because it's certainly maybe a hearts and minds of decision makers, it sounds like, that you kind of face from that respect.
Yes, dear Chris, could I redirect your question to Mr. Reich Schneider, because he's working on the project?
Please, yes.
Які головні виклики? The lack of understanding of local authorities. Most often, main decision maker is municipality, and the high-ranked official from municipality doesn't believe that much in sustainable drainage. So municipality very often sees grey infrastructure as more reliable and worth of investment. And maybe this is the point why they do that.
Yeah, well, it's a very good. There's maybe some sharing, so some learning that we can share, and the aspects around reliability and uncertainty that we've seen here, both in the UK, and what we've learned probably both from a practical perspective, and also there's been quite a lot of academic research on that side as well, with the uncertainty, but also comes with piped systems as well. So there's maybe some extra stuff that we can share there, Pavlo. Brilliant. Okay, well, so thank you very much again for sharing that, Pavlo. If you can stay on, and if I can just invite Louise, Adam, Habib, and Phil Faye, please, to come back on screen so I can see you all. And we'll look to probably actually bring just some of the other kind of questions out that were shared that might not have had the chance, just as we try to actually manage questions and kind of actually enable to see what's actually coming through. But I'll just kick off a couple, if I may, and kind of actually link back to some of the polls that we saw as well, actually. And there's a question which kind of Habib kind of picked up. So I just want to kind of also link one back to funding, Faye, to yourself and yourself, Adam. Because you kind of shared, I think, if I got the numbers right, 4,750 meters cubed of kind of equivalent water storage in the SuDS that you were looking at. I wonder if you're able to share in it kind of actually what roughly that's looking like from a kind of a kind of capital cost.
It's looking really challenging. So obviously with the current uplifts, cost of living, fuel, etc., that's looking really, really difficult for us at the moment. So we're having to do a bit of a strategy pivot to try and identify more of the green to better green solutions than we originally envisaged in the business case. So if you read our business case, we effectively got £1,304 per metre cubed at 17-18 prices, and that was without the 11% uplift from third parties. So that's our baseline. That's where the 76 million comes from against the 58 million litres, and that's what we're having to achieve. So we have to work to that output. Now, the only control we've got within that 58 million litres was we can only do 70% of any one intervention type. So permeable paving, or the green to better green bioswales detention basins, or the highway intervention stuff. So what we're hoping is that the non-household elements, if we can get into some of the, for the hospital, for example, it's got 120,000 square metres across their site. They've got green space, they've got large parking areas, and they discharge into our combined system. So we've got these large areas where we could potentially bring those costs down by working within in a bigger area. So that's the strategy. It's effectively, we've got the money that we've got. We're not going to get any more. We have to deliver the 58 million litres. So it's a real challenge.
I can well appreciate that, Adam. I very much can. Faye, did you want to add anything to that? Or?
Nothing more than Adam said, other than obviously we're now moving into phase 2, which is scaling up what we've done in kind of phase 1 and the pilot. And we are trying to find fewer but larger interventions, which are proving to be more cost effective. So we're trying to find, for example, more bioswales, because they are proving to be kind of cheaper to build per meters cubed of storage. So when Adam talks about kind of pivoting around, from a design perspective and our site selection process, those are the types of interventions that we're trying to focus on now.
No, brilliant. Thank you, Faye. And Habib, have you seen this kind of cost pressure challenge come in more kind of recently?
We ourselves haven't, because we get approached by the client who has the funding already in place. I mean, a lot of because we're in London, a lot of it is funded by Thames Water Surface Flood Programme. So that funding has already been agreed up to 2025. So those programs have been signed up. They're there. What we're doing, we're delivering those programs. I mean, just to give you an idea of the cost for a rain garden, the cost per square metre for us to do the soil, the subsoil, shingles, and the planting is about £500 a square metre. So that's our cost. That does not include the excavation, the hard excavation. For example, if it's on tarmac, you obviously got to lift the tarmac up and dig down. Maybe you have to put curb edging around, permeable curb edging, and connecting it to the pipe. So that could easily double to £1,000 a square metre, depending upon the contractors, because we work with the term contractors. So I don't know exactly how much they charge, but I think it's in the region of about £500 per square metre, just to give you an idea. So it's about £1,000 a square metre for a rain garden. You know, the amount of rainwater it collects, obviously the depth of the freeboard in there, and I would always ask people to do 200-300 mil depth of the freeboard to capture as much rainwater as possible. We do an awful lot of SuDS planters, so we work with local authorities on some of the large municipal buildings. So it could be the old libraries, town halls, sports centres. You've got very, very large roof covering sections there, and I suppose a lot of them you can't put a blue-green roof on it just because the weight of retrofitting it onto an existing building that might be 100 years old is just not feasible. So what we're doing is putting very large rain planters in, or kind of, that large water butts that can store up to 1,000 litres of water. And we then use that water to plant up their public realm. So basically taking water out of the water system and going around, picking them up, putting them on in our bowsers and watering their plants with their rainwater, preventing going in. And that's much cheaper because it is, you convert large bowsers, and we have a system to drop an empty bowser off. We convert the downpipe and we use it to water it. So that's quite an efficient way of going around.
Yeah, no, excellent. It's great to see that whole kind of reuse aspect as well there. Just look through some of the other questions. I may try and actually merge just a few and kind of actually get folks to kind of answer some. So I just wondered if anyone's kind of got any comments around. Folks talked around the need to engage with communities and some kind of elements which work kind of actually really successfully. But I wonder if you'd been kind of so you might want to talk a little bit about in terms of actually the kind of the successes that you've had and what that's enabled, but also maybe where you've done that and you still actually have some challenges to actually overcome, even though you've done what you think is actually very good kind of actually community engagement. So I wonder if maybe we'll start with yourself this time. Actually, you mentioned the fact that you kind of actually go through and you have kind of actually really good kind of conversations which kind of take place. But have you faced some of those challenges that still kind of actually crop up, and then how did you actually overcome them?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but the Coppermill community, the Waltham Forest rain gardens were adopted by the community after the first year. So we maintain a water. Remember, the first year is very intensive, so we get water and maintain. Then in the second year, they have taken over the rain garden. They've adopted it as like their own, which is great. That means it's not an ongoing cost for that. I suppose the challenge is going to happen, maybe in the future, perhaps the residents group disband, new people come in. I suppose, it's quite difficult. It's quite new because it's only happened 2 years ago. So we maintained it the first year. This is the beginning of the second year. And actually, as it happened, it was in autumn. So we've had throughout obviously the winter, you do get a lot of rains, which is great. So I think the challenge will be this summer to see if they are going out with their watering cans and watering them. So far, they have been looking after it. What we've seen is that the litter has been collected, so that's good. They have been going out. They have been keeping an eye on it. Let's see how they cope when it starts getting hot. And they do remember to go out with the 25-litre watering thing cans and water them. So yes, I think that will be a challenge there. And I suppose if the plants need replacing, how do you agree who's going to pay for it? Because that, you know, it's not a block of flats. It's not a service charge you take out of it. So if you need to buy some more shrubs, are you going to knock on everybody's door and ask for £5 each, and if somebody's going away on a holiday? So I suppose that's going to be the challenges of what about replacing any plants if you want to replace a plant. So
yeah,
it'd be I don't know how it.
Some of those future mechanisms are well worth us kind of thinking about as we want to see more kind of community uptake. And Adam, I think you mentioned actually the kind of the hope to want to actually see the community become more involved in the kind of the O&M side and that. But I wonder if you've got any kind of if you just want to kind of have any kind of comment on that, and also kind of if you've faced any challenges from having that engagement and how you've been overcoming them with the local communities. You're just on mute, Adam, as well.
That's it. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I think on the challenges piece first, what we've seen is so far, I think people are up for the short-term pain of the project with regards to works being installed. You know, you saw what Faye had done in the residential areas where we've moved some of the tenants out of their car parking areas for short durations. We've definitely got a good handle on that and some support for short-term pain, long-term gain kind of thing. I think where we have seen challenge so far is the longer term. I'm having a rain garden outside.
Oh, we just lost Adam there briefly. I mean, I don't know, Faye, if you can carry on his exact words.
I can't claim to know his exact words. But I think where Adam was going with that is we're moving
challenge.
Adam,
especially
just
where...
lost you there, Adam. We just lost you.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Can you hear me again?
I think what we missed there in terms of Adam, what Adam was saying was we're just moving into a phase where obviously we're scaling this up and we're starting to put rain gardens outside people's homes. And we've been doing a lot of work with the Highway Authority, and there are community members of the wider Severn Trent kind of collaborative team that are delivering this project to make sure that we are consulting in the right way. So, and we start, we're building a process now as we scale this up to make sure that we're engaging with the street as soon as we identify that that's a street that we might be working on. We're doing letter drops and we're starting the engagement process at that point. And then as soon as we identify that we've got a rain garden going outside somebody's house, then we do a bit more targeted engagement with directly affected properties. Because, on a project the scale of Mansfield, this could become quite a task in terms of the level of engagement, the scale, the volume of engagement, the potential PR that comes with putting new features outside of people's houses. So I know Adam and his team have been working really hard to make sure we get that engagement right. And it's also something that the Highway Authority are interested in as well. They want to see that we do that engagement right because we are putting these new interventions into the highway. So I think that's where we just lost you there, Adam. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that.
Hopefully I'm back.
You are.
Yeah, lovely. No, not really. I think, that's the main challenge. It's can we get people bought into the why and, that support that, yes, this is going outside your property and, you still got the parking availability. It's not that we're moving your parking, removing that parking capacity that you've got. It's just a different feature outside somebody's property. So support so far has been good. But yeah, we've got a long way to go. We're going to be putting a number of thousand of interventions in, and we're going to see that challenge throughout. But hopefully, through the comms that we're doing, we'll get that buy-in and not too much challenge.
Indeed, Adam, thank you. And Pavlo, I just wonder whether kind of actually from your kind of city's context, do you have very kind of similar challenges that you're facing in terms of particularly car parking is a very emotive topic when we kind of someone might lose one kind of car parking space off a street, it can drive really kind of actually strong reactions. So I don't know whether there's similar challenges that you think that you might be kind of actually facing as you look to, obviously in certain cities, and in other cities you have very different kind of challenges.
So you are asking how we deal with public opinion regarding decreasing of parking spaces and giving more space for blue-green infrastructure, yes?
Absolutely, yes, yeah.
Currently, we are facing with problems that Khmelnytskyi is separated by the river, yes, and also separated by perpendicular main street.
Mm-hmm.
So traffic jam is very big. And there is a lot of public discussion regarding the private transport, yes, and parking places for automobiles. But mostly in Poles, yes, we differ socioeconomically heavily. So still people, still not that many people have automobile in Ukraine, yes. And the public support for green places, is very high. But the local policy is based mostly on developers, yes, and on money from developers. That's why city is always pushing some developing projects ahead, but simultaneously is cutting new places for new parks in order to have a balance. Yes, so because city is provincial, yes, we also have many places where still we can create a park, and local politicians they like this instrument of creating a new park for residents in order to balance their movement, their political situation. So public opinion strongly supports new parks and new green infrastructure. Regarding sustainable drainage, unfortunately, public opinion is not in accordance with current trends in nature-based solutions. So we have no rain gardens near schools, so we do not discuss what should be done with our drainage system, and also there is not a lot of discussion about our park. That what I would like to change personally. For last couple of months, I've done a number of TV interviews and TV shows where we discussed nature-based solutions, and we even stopped a new construction on open drainage channel in the park because landowner wanted to put underground pipes and to cover it in cement from above. So it was stopped. It was stopped due to our activity, and that we have been posting your materials actually about sustainable drainage, and also about maintaining of open drainage channels. It's also very important when we go to bigger scale and we have rather big drainage channel, so it should be cared regularly. And that's important to teach local authorities, because in Ukraine, local business was still actively developing, but we have municipal enterprises. Mostly in Ukraine, it's municipal enterprise who cares about green infrastructure. And what we also would like to change is to install a technical education, technical vocational education training course for landscape designers. I'm also working with Khmelynytskyi. This public enterprise, community enterprise, cares for parks and gardens of Kyiv, of capital of Ukraine. And they have more than 2,000 people of manpower. Yes.
Right. Okay. So
they have numerous projects. So I can also put you in contact with Khmelynytskyi too. And this public campaign is very important, directed to public, and to make it clear what is nature-based solution for rainwater management. I hope I answered your question. But
yeah, no, Pavel, thank you. That gives quite a bit of insight there to some of those kind of actually challenges, and there's certainly, I think, kind of actually material that CIRIA is kind of created, and actually which actually might be quite helpful there. And I just want to kind of pick up a couple of things and kind of actually swing that round again around maybe some of the guidance and support that might be needed. And certainly when we looked at the polls, there was kind of actually certainly kind of nearly kind of actually 50% were kind of actually requesting more kind of support and guidance in whatever guise that might come. So I might kind of now kind of ask for Adam and Faye, from your experience from actually working in Severn Trent, and Habib, your experience of kind of actually working across with a number of local authorities in Thames Water, for example. Is there any kind of actually particular guidance or elements of guidance that you think would be helpful to be part of upskilling the industry? And then I'll maybe come to you, Louise, just kind of actually maybe kind of actually think about what that could mean in the terms of kind of maybe kind of future work on that. So Faye or Adam, did you want to go first, perhaps?
Happy to step in. One of the things that that I'm quite keen on is kind of standardising designs, and obviously the CIRIA SuDS manual is a fantastic resource that's available to all of us. And one of the things that we did on the Mansfield project early doors was to standardise sort of the outline design stage, using the CIRIA SuDS manual, but also taking account of Severn Trent's requirements and the requirement of the Highway Authority. So it's not necessarily training and skills and guidance, but when it comes to delivering SuDS at scale and retrofitting SuDS at scale, having those standard tools makes life a lot easier when we're talking, we're talking to the Highway Authority, because we've got a lot of principles that have already been agreed. In terms of other guidance that in terms of SuDS, not necessarily relevant to the retrofit, but obviously we've got Schedule 3 of the Flood and Water Management Act, which is due to be in place in 2024. And I know that Defra are working hard to get all of the legislation lined up for that. And I think there's certainly an element of capacity building within lead local flood authorities, who probably geared themselves up 10 or more years ago for this legislation and are now starting again. And also in the developer community, in terms of what Schedule 3 will look like. Like we've probably got a reasonable idea of what it looks like and what that means in terms of SuDS design. But I guess there's a role for CIRIA in terms of making sure that the SuDS manual is reflective of the requirements of the latest requirements of Schedule 3 when that finally comes into legislation next year.
Thank you, Phil. Adam, did you want to add to that?
I just think there's a number of subjects that the industry needs to lean into to try and gain the learning out of not just Mansfield but all SuDS projects, and we need to share more. So that's certainly my objective with Mansfield, that we actually share some of the results. We're doing some testing with Sheffield University on ground medium, and I think outlet orifices as well is a real area for us. Certainly when we face into some of the things you were talking around with regards to DWMP at the beginning, how can we use that not only on our interventions but also in the non-household arena if we get the trial to be a success, and we can persuade others to take these things onto their premises. And I think you look at what we've just seen with the planters that Mary Street have just presented and what's on their website. There's all these retrofitting opportunities to encourage, and I think things like the biodiversity net gain planning condition that comes in November will also encourage more or legislate for more SuDS and green space. But yeah, Schedule 3 for me, I think what we're trying to do at the moment is kind of the prelude to it, and we are trying to flip the coin and say, hang on to your water on the site, don't get rid of the water off the site and just protect yourself from a 100-year event. It has to be a complete step change for me about how we incentivize people to put proper SuDS in that are fed in from the top, and we get rid of this flood risk assessment storage that is directly fed and is effectively just discharging straight off the site in the first instance. So I'm hoping the learning that we capture can help develop over the next 18 months towards that journey of real proper standards that SuDS approval bodies can then put into place for post 2025.
No, great, Adam. Thank you for that. Habib, do you, from your kind of experiences, is there anything that you could see would be real kind of actually benefit to the wider industry when we come to kind of concept design to implementation?
Yeah, we often get given drawings by engineers who's already pre-driven, and they'll put something like 100 or 200 mil of topsoil to work with, and that really isn't deep enough. It really should be 400, 500. We also go back to them and go, 200 mil is not deep enough. And then you'll get another drawing from a different engineer from a different company, and they again will have 200 mil of topsoil, and that really isn't deep enough. You're thinking, who is telling you this? You know, it really should be 400 mil, 500 mil. So there is an education. They all do need to be kind of picking that up. And as I said, you know, we go to some rain gardens that have already been filled in, and they fill the soil right to the surface. They filled it. So when we arrive, there's no freeboard. It's like, why have you filled it? Oh, can you do the planting? Like, well, we have to excavate it out. So there's some quite basic things that they need to incorporate in there and across the board. But you know, they are getting better and better. And obviously, some wonderful work that Adam and Faye are doing in Mansfield can be a real role model. And I can see case studies coming out left, right, and centre, and people referring to their, you know, to that as a model town and replicating it and learning from any mistakes that hopefully, you know, nothing but any lessons out of that be picked up and, you know, can be taken over, you know, and just, you know, there doesn't seem to be enough consistency between different clients, as you know, they all want the same purpose, but the way they go about it is not the same. And you can suddenly go back to them and say, are you sure you want this? Because this is how we did it with this client. They go, oh yeah, well, that's a good idea. And you know, some planters, for example, they ask for a 10 mil orifice restrictor, others don't. It's like, well, why do you want it? Why do you not want it? So there's perhaps not enough consistency across the board. Obviously, what CIRIA is doing fantastic, and the Urban Design Guide, the UDL SuDS Design Guide, which I'm sure some of you have read, and if you haven't, you really should read that about, you know, SuDS and rain garden. It's fantastic. And I said, obviously, you know, CIRIA's great work is coming along, but yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we're getting there. Literally in the last 3 years, it's gone from 0 to like 100 miles an hour with rain garden. So the momentum is there. And, you know, every year in London, there's flooding. And we, you know, every time we post anything about rain gardens on our social media, we are flooded with positive responses from people about our rain garden. And they're all going, why can't we have it? Why are they not in Brent? Why have we got more in Wandsworth? So, you know, the support is there for rain garden because people can see the problem it's causing to their properties in London. And it's not just once in 10 years, it's like every year now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Louise, can you just kind of, I mean, I'm aware you've already got a number of some kind of actually guidance stuff actually in train linked to say kind of actually community kind of actually looking after stuff. So I just wondered if you want to add any kind of more kind of thoughts around the whole what the need is, kind of actually kind of going forward, and kind of actually things that Sarah might be looking to do in that.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Well, we are actually engaged with some work with Defra to look at the skills gap and training needs in advance of implementation of Schedule 3. So we're just doing a bit of background work on that now. Look out for surveys coming forward. And if anybody's got any particular thoughts on that, they want to communicate to me, please do. We run training, obviously, but can see the need for that getting far more in the coming months. We are updating the SuDS manual. We're just scoping that at the moment. And we are aware that the standards for implementation of Schedule 3 will be made mandatory. So there was some recommendation to update the non-statutory standards a while ago. And I think that's what the update will be based on. And we will make sure that new edition of the SuDS manual helps delivery of those standards. That's really what we want the manual to do. But we were just talking today as well, there's so many kind of offshoots from the SuDS manual, more sort of nuanced guidance and thinking about water quality. There's looking, Chris and I are involved in a project looking at asset management, so thinking about how we can value blue and green assets properly, how we can get them incorporated in asset management processes, existing asset management processes, so that there is a management and maintenance budget, regime, contracts, that kind of thing. So my colleague Adrienne, who's on the call, is looking at developing guiding principles for community maintenance of flood risk management assets. Obviously, as we implement more and more things, as we know, maintenance is important, and if communities can take ownership, rather than feel obliged, I think that is the way around to approach it. So there are so many things going on, but all sort of connected back to the SuDS manual, which is it's good and heartening to know, and we will try and keep up with the demand for training and guidance. Really would welcome any kind of case study material and learnings coming from Mansfield. Maybe we could start an ongoing blog on susdrain or something about the latest thoughts coming from Mansfield. Does that have to be fully formed with, peer-reviewed results? But that might be some way of communicating what's happening in real time. And Pavlo, case studies from the Ukraine that people can advise on, that might be a way of sharing knowledge there. If we can kind of publish what you've got and maybe get people to comment and advise, that would be maybe helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. And just looking at one of the comments actually come in there, there's a kind of request, Pavlo, in terms of how you might share your kind of details so learning can be passed back and across. So we can look to help kind of actually facilitate that going forward. Well, folks, I'm conscious of time, and just before I actually maybe just hand over to Louise to close. We've had a number of kind of questions which have been answered by our speakers today, but the ones that we haven't been able to kind of actually get through, we will try and actually get them answered afterwards and actually be able to kind of share them out. And there's a number of ones which kind of help us think around actually what else might actually be needed to actually support us as a collective kind of going forward. It's been great to see actually over 120 people at its peak today actually come on to this webinar. So I wish you all kind of very happy retrofitting, but also to do that safely, and particularly to our friends over in Ukraine, considering your situation that you certainly can actually face, and our thoughts are with you on that. So Louise, I'll just hand over to you now just to kind of do the wrap up, but it's a big thank you from me for everyone and actually their contributions today.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for fantastic sharing. And thanks to all speakers for today. It's been really great to have you, and I hope the audience have enjoyed what we've all presented. I've just got a few announcements. We have a benefits estimation tool. Some people might have heard of it already. We've upgraded it and taken it online, and we'll be launching it very soon. Details to follow. Look out on the CIRIA and susdrain websites. This year we have SuDS Awards every year. So for big projects, every 2 years, this is an in-between year where we're having SuDS Champion Awards. If you know anyone who is really good at promoting SuDS, I can see some sat here, and you would like to nominate them for a SuDS champion, please look at our website, fill in the form, and we will host the SuDS Champions Awards in Edinburgh in July. I just want to briefly show you what people think about being a SuDS champion. There's 3 categories: experienced, professional, rising star for new people new to the world of SuDS, and exceptional team. So Kevin has worked in SuDS for a lot of years. but was very pleased to be awarded champion. Josh there from Atkins, who also very pleased to be winner of the Rising Star Award, and our outstanding team, Slow the Flow. And I think Amanda might be on the call as well, so good to have you. Just wanted to talk a little bit community to practice. So susdrain is our community of practice for SuDS professionals. Adrian is on the call. He manages our biodiversity community of practice, and we also have one on soils. So if anyone is interested in joining those as an organisation, please get in contact. I mentioned the asset management for Blue Green Infrastructure Project, the community maintenance project. We've also got a couple of others that we are getting off the ground. If there's any interest in any of these, please do let me know. And just a final thank you to the susdrain partners and supporters, without whom we could not put on events such as today's. So thank you again, everyone, for joining, and particularly to our speakers and our chair, Chris. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, and have a good day.
Thanks, Pablo.
Thank you, Angie, Pablo.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Abu.
All right.